far.
Governor Lamont announced a confirmation that he is going to reduce these COVID-19 restrictions later this month, and that includes travel requirements and capacity limits for businesses.
Fox 61's Angelo Bavaro is joining us in West Hartford now with an update on this new news from the governor.
Good morning, and just to put this all into perspective, it has been about a year at this point since a lot of these businesses down here in West Hartford and all across the state were forced to shut their doors because of this pandemic. So this is just some really surreal news. But Governor Lamont says that we have earned these rollbacks, citing those ever-improving numbers we were just talking about. So now let's talk about the rollbacks and what exactly we can expect. These restrictions are going to be lifted on Friday, March 19th. So in just about 2 weeks at this point, all capacity limits will be lifted for lots of different businesses, including restaurants, retail, libraries, personal services, gyms, museums, offices, and houses of worship. Social gatherings at a private residence can now include 25 people indoors and 100 people outdoors. And at commercial venues, 100 people will be allowed indoors and 200 people outdoors. All sports going to be allowed to practice and compete, and tournaments also going to be allowed. And finally, Connecticut's travel advisory will be changed from a requirement to a recommendation. But some restrictions will stay in place even as those guidelines are rolled back. Face masks and social distancing still going to be required. Bars going to stay closed. Restaurants and venues will still need to close at 11 p.m. And large event venues like stadiums will not open until April. Now, we've been talking with people all morning long about these rollbacks. Hearing some mixed reaction. Take a listen.
I think it's high time. Having been involved with a small business that had to close because of the COVID restrictions, I felt that the small stores, particularly the sole proprietorships that could control the number of people who were in their stores, could certainly control mask wearing, I thought they should have remained open the whole time.
I'm thinking that it feels like it may be a little too soon, that I'm concerned that it may have been better to wait another 30 days to keep an eye on the numbers.
And looking ahead to the summer here, Governor Lamont is advising those summer camps and festivals that they can start that planning process. So that is something to look forward to this summer. Reporting live in West Hartford this morning, Angelo Bavaro, Fox 61 News.
Angelo, thanks. All right. A lot of news there. Again, we have a full explanation